Hello students, welcome to a session on Explain. In this particular video, we'll have a discussion related to the slowdown in the automobile sector. Very recently, there has been a lot of discussion related to this particular slowdown in this particular sector, and Government of India has stated that it is thinking of implementing certain measures or providing certain support to this particular sector so that there can be revival of growth in this particular sector. And as per the latest reports, for the month of July, the sale of vehicles have dropped by more than 31%, and this particular decline is the highest in the last 19 years. Now, what is the issue here? Let's have a discussion related to this particular slowdown. First, why this particular sector is very important. Some of the very important points are: one, it contributes around 7% to GDP, gross domestic product. Second, within manufacturing sector, it contributes around 49% of manufacturing GDP. Third, the total number of jobs which are created directly as well as indirectly because of this particular sector is more than 35 million. And fourth very important point, it has got huge number of forward as well as backward linkages. What is the meaning of this? Let's assume here is a car manufacturing company X. If this particular company X wants to manufacture one unit of a car, it will source huge number of raw materials from various vendors. Now, these particular vendors are basically nothing but concept of a backward linkage. And once this particular car is manufactured, this will be sold in the market through a distribution chain. These particular distribution chains will also lead to lot of employment generation. These are called as forward linkages. So this particular sector has got a huge number of forward as well as backward linkages. So these are some of the very important points which showcase that the automobile sector or automobile industry is very important from the Indian economic context. Next, why there has been a slowdown in this particular sector? Some of the very important points are: one, it is not just India that is experiencing this particular slowdown in the automobile sector. This is being experienced by many of the countries where there is a manufacturing center. For example, even Germany is experiencing this particular slowdown in the automobile industry. And various reports have stated that in the next 2 to 3 quarters, this particular slowdown will continue because of internal factors as well as external factors. This is the first reason. Second very important reason, more than 50% of the vehicles which are sold are basically offered on credit. In simple terms, when more than 50% of the vehicles, be it cars or two-wheelers, are sold in the market, people buy these particular vehicles by taking loans from the market or from the institutions. Now, the two very important institutions here are the banks and NBFCs. The issue is plaguing both of these particular financial institutions. Let me start with the first, NBFC. Please understand, post the default of IL and FS, there has been a lot of discussion related to NBFCs. And one of the point of discussion which is majorly centered around the financial or credit availability for these particular NBFCs. Various reports have come out which have basically showcased that the credit availability for the NBFCs has dried up post the default of IL and FS. Now, NBFCs basically take the loans from the banking sector, and these NBFCs will give vehicle loans or will provide a credit for the purchasing of these particular vehicles. But what has happened? Since the default of IL and FS, the exposure of credit from the banking sector to the NBFCs has taken a hit. And since NBFCs are unable to get access to the credit, unlike the previous situation, their exposure in the form of giving loans in the market for buying the vehicles has also come down. In essence, since the NBFCs are unable to access the credit, the consumption or the demand for the vehicles in the market has taken a hit. And apart from this, second important sector which was giving vehicle loans or consumer loans was the banking sector. And in the recent times, because of various issues, even the exposure of the banking sector in the form of vehicle loans has also come down. So since the credit availability has come down, the demand for the vehicles in the market also has come down. This is a second very important reason. Third very important reason is because of the Supreme Court guidelines, the manufacturers are forced to shift from manufacturing BS4 vehicles to BS6 vehicles, which will be introduced in the market from 2020, that is financial year 2020. Now, apart from this, Government of India is also promoting the production of electric vehicles and is giving huge number of incentives for the production of electric vehicles. The best example for this will be the reduction in the GST rate from 12% to 5% on these particular EVs. Whereas the cars under GST are being taxed at 28%. Now look at this. The manufacturers have had to incur huge amount of expenditure in the form of developing the infrastructure that is required to manufacture the vehicles which are BS6 compliant. As a result of this, the cost price of the car has increased, the market prices also have increased. And on the other side, those people who want to buy these particular cars are unsure of what will be the policy change made after 1 or 2 years. Because please understand, when you buy a four-wheeler, one very important parameter you will also consider is what is the resale value of this particular car when you want to sell it in the market. Let's say down the line 2 years or 3 years later. But if Government of India is saying that they will promote EVs, henceforth all the vehicles which are manufactured four-wheelers will be BS6 compliant, then what will happen to the inventories or the cars which are manufactured already which are BS4 compliant? The cars have been manufactured, these have been sent to the distribution channel, the inventory is actually building up. This is another very important reason why there is a slowdown in the sector. Apart from this, another very important reason why the market prices of the cars or the vehicles have gone up is because of the third party insurance. Now, what is the concept of a third party insurance? You need not be worried about it. All you need to understand is this. Supreme Court of India basically mandated from last year that the cars or the two-wheelers, whenever they are sold to the buyers in the market, the third party insurance has to be provided for a larger period of time. For example, in case of cars, the third party insurance was extended for 3 years more. As a result of this, the premium which is to be paid by the buyers has increased. The total cost of the car has increased. And whenever the cost of any of the goods or the commodity in the market increases, obviously the demand for this particular good will fall. This is another very important reason. And finally, the increase in the wages has not been satisfactory, especially in rural India. Rather than increasing the number of employment opportunities, in the recent times it has been seen that because of the slowdown pressures in the economy, the increase in the wages has not been very satisfactory. And when the wages do not increase, especially in the rural Indian market, the demand for the consumption goods will come down. This is another reason why there is a slowdown in this particular sector. Now, what is the likely impact of this particular slowdown? One, the forward linkages as well as the backward linkages associated with the automobile sector will suffer. Very recently, you must have come across the news articles where various manufacturing companies, those which are involved in car manufacturing, are letting people go. That is basically they are saying these many number of employment units, we do not want them because there is a slowdown in the sector. And since there is a slowdown, I cannot incur the same amount of expenditure in the form of employment salaries or wages. So they are letting of these particular employees go. As a result of this, majorly impacted are those labor which are hired part-time or casual basis. That is first very important impact. Second, those particular MSME sector units which are basically supplying these particular raw materials to these particular companies are also suffering. And these particular MSM units were already under a lot of pressure because of certain issues such as GST. Hence, the financial burden or financial pressure on these particular MSM units will again increase. Third, when the demand for the automobile in the market comes down, the demand for steel, demand for aluminum will also come down. In any economy, whenever you want to measure what kind of a growth can be achieved or what kind of a growth potential is available in the economy, you usually consider one parameter, that is consumption of minerals such as steel and aluminum. And in this particular scenario, when there's a slowdown in the automobile sector, the consumption of steel and aluminum will also fall. And majorly, various experts have already stated that this particular slowdown is likely to continue, and more than 1 million jobs are under threat because of this particular slowdown in the sector. So these are the likely impacts. Now finally, what is the way forward? What should be the recommendation? Various experts have demanded that the GST rates should be reduced from 28% to 18%, so that the cost or the market prices of these particular vehicles will come down in the market. But having said so, understand this particular slowdown in the automobile sector will not go away just because there is a reduction in the GST. You must have come across the argument that this particular slowdown is structural in nature. And whenever there is a structural slowdown in any of the economy, you will have to implement long-term reforms, not short-term reforms. For example, the credit availability for the NBFCs. That is one of the very important issue which is plaguing the automobile sector. So rather than providing short-term fixes such as reduction in GST, government should focus more on ensuring that there's a credit availability for the NBFCs, so that again demand can be picked up and the manufacturing will also pick up. Second, various experts have stated that to overcome this particular slowdown, not only in the economy, but also prop up the demand for the consumer goods in the market, Government of India has to provide the fiscal stimulus. The fiscal stimulus to not only companies, but also for the consumers in the market. Now you will have to wait and see whether Government of India will provide any kind of a fiscal stimulus to this particular sector. So these are the two very important recommendations to overcome this particular slowdown in the automobile sector. This is a discussion. Thank you. Have a good day.